There comes a moment in every strong woman's life when she stands at the edge of everything she once knew, alone, broken, yet on the brink of something extraordinary. The world may have counted her out. She may have been abandoned, underestimated, even shattered by those she once trusted. But the strongest women are not the ones who have never fallen. They are the ones who rise from the ashes, who rebuild themselves from the ground up, without asking for permission, without waiting for rescue. If you've ever felt like the weight of the world was pressing down on you, if you've ever had to pick up the pieces of your life with no one to lean on, stay with me. Because this is your story. This is the story of a woman who does not just survive, she transforms. The ground beneath her feet crumbles without warning. It doesn't send a signal before it strikes. It doesn't whisper a warning. It simply happens. One day she wakes up, and the life she knew is no longer hers. The love she trusted is gone. The plans she made have been reduced to dust. The certainty she clung to now feels like a cruel illusion. And in that moment she stands at a crossroads, not of her choosing, not of her making, but one she must face nonetheless. Two paths lie before her. One leads to despair, to surrender, to believing this breaking is the end of her story. The other is a path of fire, of rebuilding, of transformation. It's a road she must walk alone, not because she has no choice, but because only in solitude can she truly find herself again. It is a painful road, a merciless one, where every step forward feels like dragging the weight of a past that refuses to let go. But those who dare to walk it, they emerge unrecognizable. They emerge as something greater than what they ever were before. In the beginning, the pain is deafening. It doesn't whisper, it screams. It reminds her of every loss, every betrayal, every moment she was made to feel small. It tells her she's not strong enough, that she was never meant to walk alone, that she isn't built for this battle. And for a while, she might believe it. She might sit in the wreckage of her old life, wondering how she got here, wondering if there's even a way forward. The darkness feels endless, the loneliness suffocating, the doubt paralyzing. She questions everything, her worth, her decisions, her ability to ever feel whole again. This is the crucible moment, the place where many turn back, seeking the comfort of the familiar, even when the familiar was never good enough. But something remarkable happens in the silence of destruction. When there's nothing left to distract her, nothing left to hold on to, she meets herself. Not the version shaped by others, not the self who lived in the expectations of those around her, but the woman who was always there, waiting to be seen. And that is the moment everything changes. In the quiet aftermath of loss, she hears a voice she's always known but rarely listened to, her own. It speaks of strength she didn't know she possessed, of dreams she had forgotten, of a resilience that runs deeper than any wound. She begins to understand that this fall, this brutal, unforgiving collapse, is not the end. It is the beginning. It is the place where illusions die, where weakness is shed, where truth is finally laid bare. The world teaches us to fear endings, to mourn them as tragedies, but the strongest among us know that endings are the birthplace of transformation. She is not who she was before. She cannot be. The woman who existed before the fall no longer fits into the life ahead. She must rebuild, not to return to what was lost, but to become something greater. The pain, once unbearable, now becomes her teacher. It does not disappear overnight, it lingers, it tests, it presses against her like a relentless tide, demanding to be acknowledged. And she does acknowledge it. She stops running from it. She stops pretending it doesn't exist. She looks it in the eye and asks, "What are you here to teach me?" Because pain is not the enemy. It is the architect of wisdom, the sharp edge that carves away all that is false. It shows her where she placed her trust too freely, where she ignored the whispers of her own intuition, where she settled for less than she deserved. And she listens, really listens, perhaps for the first time. Every step forward is painful, but it is also liberating. She is shedding the old versions of herself, the ones built on fear, on dependence, on the belief that she needed someone else to complete her. She is learning, slowly but surely, that the only person she ever needed was herself. She discovers strength in places she never thought to look, in her solitude, in her tears, in her refusal to give up even when giving up seems like the only option. Each day becomes a choice, a conscious decision to keep moving forward, to keep building, to keep becoming. There are setbacks, days when the pain returns with a vengeance, moments when she questions if this journey is worth the struggle. But something has changed within her. She no longer measures her worth by what was taken from her, but by what she has built from nothing. She finds beauty in the struggle, purpose in the pain, meaning in the moments when she chooses herself even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult. This is her quiet revolution, the moment she realizes no one is coming to save her. And that is not a tragedy, it is the greatest gift she could ever receive. Because once she understands this, she stops waiting. She stops seeking permission. She stops hesitating. She stops apologizing. She stops explaining why she chooses herself. She no longer needs the world to understand her choices because she finally understands them herself. She builds, brick by brick, not from desperation but from absolute clarity. She has seen rock bottom, felt its cold, unrelenting grip, and instead of being swallowed by it, she used it as her foundation. She is no longer moved by empty words, by fleeting affection, by people who do not match the strength she has fought so hard to gain. She is no longer interested in proving her worth, because she knows now that it was never in question. Self-reliance is a quiet revolution. It is not loud, not boastful. It does not need validation, nor does it seek approval. It simply is. The world doesn't always know what to do with a woman who stands on her own. A woman who doesn't need validation, who doesn't need to be saved, who doesn't fear solitude. She's called intimidating, difficult, unapproachable, but she doesn't flinch. She doesn't shrink herself to fit into spaces that don't honor her. Because once a woman learns to stand alone, truly stand alone, she becomes something rare, something untouchable. She does not seek revenge on those who wronged her, does not waste her energy proving to them that she survived. She does not hold on to resentment because she understands that every person who left, every betrayal she endured, every loss she suffered was part of the process, part of the fire that forged her. She no longer asks, why did this happen to me? But instead, what did this make of me? And the answer, it made her unbreakable. She walks differently now, not because she's trying to prove anything, but because she has nothing left to prove. She speaks with a quiet confidence, not because she needs to be heard, but because she knows her voice carries weight. She is not bitter. She is not hardened by life's cruelty. She is simply aware of what she will accept, of who she will allow into her world, of the power she holds. There is no desperation in her anymore. No need to cling, to chase, to beg for what is not meant for her. She understands now that the people who belong in her life will never require her to abandon herself to keep them. She is whole, and those who cannot respect that will fall away. She does not mourn their absence. She trusts that what is lost for a reason, and what remains is what truly matters. She has become selective with her energy, with her presence, with the spaces she allows herself to enter. She no longer tolerates half-hearted efforts, empty words, or relationships that drain rather than nourish. She understands that walking away is not an act of weakness, but of wisdom. The world teaches women to be soft, to be accommodating, to be agreeable even at their own expense. But she has learned that softness and strength are not opposites. She can be kind without being a fool. She can be compassionate without being used. She can love deeply without losing herself in the process. She has mastered the balance between an open heart and an unshakable spirit. She doesn't fear the unknown anymore. She has faced darkness and did not break. She has walked through fire and did not burn. She has built herself from the ruins of a life that was meant to destroy her. And in doing so, she has become someone even she did not expect. She has stopped waiting for the right time, the right circumstances, the right person. She knows now that life does not pause for those who hesitate. She moves forward, not because she has all the answers, but because she trusts herself enough to find them along the way. There was a time when she thought happiness was something to be found outside herself, a place, a person, a dream yet to be realized. But she knows now that happiness is not a destination. It is a state of being. It is in the small moments, in the quiet victories, in the peace that comes from knowing she is exactly where she needs to be. She understands now that solitude is not loneliness. It is not a void to be filled. It is not a punishment. It is a sanctuary, a sacred space where she meets herself without interference. The world has taught her to fear being alone, as if her worth is measured by who stands beside her. But she knows better now. She has seen how people can leave, how promises can shatter, how even the strongest bonds can weaken. And in that knowing, she has found her own presence to be the most reliable companion. She no longer fills the silence with meaningless noise. She does not run from the quiet, does not seek constant validation from voices that do not understand her depth. She embraces the stillness, because in it, she hears the whispers of her own intuition. She trusts herself now in a way she never did before. She no longer second-guesses her instincts, no longer asks for permission to live as she chooses. She understands that the strongest decisions are often made in solitude, away from the influence of those who do not walk her path. She no longer lives in the shadows of expectation. She no longer bends herself into shapes that please others, while breaking herself in the process. She has tasted the freedom that comes with self-acceptance, and she will not trade it for approval. The woman who rebuilds herself does not measure her worth by the roles assigned to her by society. She is not just a mother, not just a daughter, not just a partner. She is not confined to the labels that seek to define her existence in relation to others. She is her own person, whole and unshaken. She is not valuable because she is needed. She is valuable because she exists, and that realization shifts everything. There is a fire in her now, a quiet and steady burn that does not seek to destroy, but to illuminate. She sees people for who they are, not for who she wishes them to be. She does not make excuses for those who take her kindness for granted. She does not ask for permission to exist fully. She does not dim her light to make others comfortable. She does not hold herself back for fear of being too much. She knows now that those who cannot handle her intensity were never meant to walk beside her. She has learned that her power does not lie in being understood by everyone, but in understanding herself. She does not chase love, does not beg for attention, does not fear the judgment of those who do not understand her path. And so she rises, not with a roar, not with a grand declaration, but with quiet certainty. She doesn't need the world to acknowledge her transformation. She doesn't need applause or recognition. She simply is. And that is enough. She does not ask the world for approval, nor does she wait for permission to live as she was meant to. She has walked through fire not to be consumed by it, but to emerge stronger, wiser, and unshaken. She knows now that solitude is not a void, but a sanctuary. That self-worth is not something granted by others, but something she claims for herself. She no longer seeks to be understood by those who were never meant to walk beside her. She has let go of the need to prove, to explain, to fight for a place in spaces that do not honor her. She moves forward not because the road is easy, but because standing still is no longer an option. She has found a peace that is not dependent on others, a strength that does not waver in the face of doubt. She doesn't need to be saved. She never did. She was always enough, even when the world made her believe otherwise. And now she stands, not as she once was, but as the woman she was always meant to become. There is a profound beauty in a woman who has rebuilt herself, not because the world has made it easy for her, but because she has refused to be broken by it. There is a strength in her solitude, not as an act of defiance, but as a declaration of her completeness. If you've ever had to pick up the pieces of your life with no one to lean on, if you've ever felt like the weight of the world was pressing down on you, remember, this is your story. This is the story of a woman who does not just survive, she transforms. And in that transformation lies a power that can never be taken away.